Sounds good. All right. So I'm Heather Brown. We work, both Janine and I. Janine, you want to say hello as well?
Hello.
Both of us work with ISU for ISBE. And we started IL MathCom as a way for us to share what we call the joy and wonder of mathematics. One thing I'll ask you to do right now is, if you are not talking, if you can mute yourself, it would be in the bottom left. If you kind of hover over the screen, you can see the bottom left would have a mute button. When we get to the discussion period, please unmute yourself when you have something to say. But until then, to avoid some background noise, we ask that you do that. So we just want to welcome you here. We hope that you are all interested in coming back to another IL MathCom. You received emails, and I'm going to put a link right now in the chat window that has a link to our math page that has a forum. So we'll start a forum. I'll start a forum actually right now that will that you can, any comments that you have, if you want to share something or resources that people talk about, I'll try to capture them as they go on. If people talk about different websites, anything that's in the chat window, I'll try to post in there as well.
Okay, around 4:15 I have to go.
And
okay?
I think
if you have to go.
That's good. I think somebody's not on mute. Okay, I think that's everything. So today we're talking about transitional math. So the first person that we are going to have talk is Kathleen Almy. Kathy, if you can do a quick introduction, and then do you know how to share your screen in the bottom center?
I do. We'll see if it works. Hi, everyone. Most of you know me, but if you don't, I'm Kathleen Almy. I work for Northern Illinois University's P20 Center, but basically I work for all of you in the state of Illinois, making transitional math come to life. And a lot of names I recognize in here, so I'm so happy that you guys could join us. One thing before I start with some slides, my portion, this is not a great big presentation. The IL MathComs, I'm excited about getting to attend one. This is the first time I've ever gotten to, but I think what's cool about them is that they're active participant. But we do want to give you some information. I have had several people email me asking, are there more updates coming? Is this the only update webinar? I want you to know that I'm going to be starting monthly webinars that anybody can do, not just community colleges or just high schools, but for everybody. So that's going to be coming along with all kinds of other communication and wonderfulness, so you'll know what's going on. So I don't want you to worry that you're not going to be in the loop. If anything, you'll probably feel like we're bugging you, but that's all right. All right, so let's dive in and let's just get a brief overview. I don't want to assume, and some of you know this stuff inside and out, but if not, we don't want to assume. Okay, so let me share my screen. I've got a mosquito in the room. That's the joy of, I'm sitting in Central Illinois today.
You should listen to, Janine has crickets in her office today. It's delightful. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so if I start like slapping things and I get stung, y'all will know why. Okay, so slideshow. Okay, we're not going to take real long to do this. Okay, just a few things. So when I'm saying PWR Act, you know what I'm talking about. So this is the law that we're all working with that has several components to it. Transitional math is just one of them, but that's the part that I work on as the director for Illinois. Main thing these courses are, they're high school courses taught by high school teachers, and they're not dual credit or AP or dual enrollment. So the premise of these courses are the bottom row of this chart. And so what we're talking about today is the resource development. And there's been a lot of work. Anji Garza will be talking in a little bit to explain what's already been going on. But today is about the resource development for the three courses at the bottom row. So transition to STEM, transition to QL, stats, or transition to tech math. Each of these courses has a role. All of them, though, are supposed to be highly contextualized. That's one thing that's super important that is really emphasized. And the law also emphasizes the connection between these courses in a student's life, career, not just the next college course or the next course that they're going to take. It's more than that. So that's one thing you're going to hear me just say ad nauseum, because if you're interested in writing, and we hope that you are, we'll be giving you an application, the link to that later in the webinar. And it's nothing scary. It's a pretty easy application to fill out. But the main thing is we want people that are interested in working on the type of work that we're looking at, which is highly contextualized, and a lot of it is going to be with looking at careers and working with employers. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay, the main thing with each of these courses, Transition to STEM is not Algebra 2. There's some similarities, but it's getting students ready for college algebra. That's the end course. Transition to QL Stats is getting students ready for a quantitative literacy, a liberal arts math class, some college level non-STEM course, and elementary stats is a really common course that a student will go into. So the transition to QL Stats, if you're thinking, okay, I have a student that is headed towards non-STEM, but they're not ready for AP Stats, that transitional course could be really good for them. The transition to STEM could be your student that the next course in their senior year is pre-calc, and they don't feel good enough with their Algebra 2 or their Math 3 to do pre-calc. That course could be for them. Transition to STEM is a little bit of a misnomer because that's more than just STEM fields. If you want to be an elementary education teacher, you're going to need college algebra. So if you're going into particular areas of business, you need college algebra. So it's not just going into IT or engineering. Transition to Tech Math is for students that are headed in a technical area that are need particular technical courses. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that because Tech Math is kind of its own little beast because it's not uniform done everywhere, but that is one of the options that we've got. The main thing is all these courses have algebra, but this is not, let's just do all the same thing that we've done before. Okay, so the goal is give these students a different experience. The main thing to remember is almost none of the content they're going to see is new. So the experience has to be. That's just core to all of this. We can't redo the first 3 years, and we can't do traditional developmental education like it's done at community colleges. It has to be something different so it's motivating to students because they don't have to take the course. So it's going to be contextualized, lots of problem solving, college and career readiness. And the big thing is the students get to do math. They're going to be doing a lot of tasks and problem solving with as many real things that we can have them do as possible. And the best analogy I can give you is in math, because a lot of us on this are math teachers. In math, we do a lot of, and I think with Common Core we've gotten away from it, but definitely at colleges, I know that we haven't. It feels like in terms of music, we work on the scales. We don't always let the students play music. And what we're trying to do in this work is let them actually play the music, not just, oh, someday you'll get to. It's more than just the skills. It's actually getting to see why do you need those skills and what does it look like in real life. So authenticity is everything. So the one thing that I found as we started working on this last year when we were working with the subcommittees and we were defining these courses is not everybody understands what we mean by authenticity. So contrived word problems, coins, mixtures, trains, cutting rope, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about ladders sliding down walls and things like that. Also, we are not looking for anything that's juvenile, or juvenile. So sometimes there's some really good Common Core resources out there, but they're written for a 14-year-old. This is usually a 16 or 17-year-old that's taking this course, maybe 18. Sometimes they like math, sometimes they don't. So we don't want anything that feels childish. So that's really important. And we're not doing traditional applications at all. So the idea like quote unquote story problems, it's the idea of realism that we're going for as much as possible. So this is one that actually Mike Caparula is on here, that he's been working with the technical subcommittee. He's the lead on that. He provided this example, and I love it because this is a classic case of a problem. Now, this isn't a full-on task, but it's a problem in technical math. And the idea behind this is really the math in terms of figuring out this dosage is just ratios and proportions, but it doesn't scream that. And this is a hard problem. It is not a watered down problem. It requires a lot. A student has to get familiar with the context and learn the wording, and then they have to figure out what are they being asked to do, because that's what they're going to be doing in their jobs and their next classes, where people will say, you've had a math class, why can't you use it? And what students come back with is, well, we don't do things like this in math class. So in this math class, that's our goal. do things like an employer would ask them to do, or their biology teacher would ask them to do, or their nursing, whoever they're working with on their nursing class would, so that they get that experience, but have more time than they would in that outcome course. So we can really dig into making sense of the math. And where they're weak with the math skills, then we work more on that as needed through applications. This is a task example. This is actually a summative. Anji Garza is going to be talking in just a minute about the work that she's been doing with various work groups. And they've done some amazing things in the QL Stats course. And this was one of the tasks that they wrote. And it's about what it means, when you're becoming a first-time homeowner and all of the tasks that are involved with that, the decisions that have to be made. So that's one of the big focuses, foci, and for all of us math people, focuses that is in a lot of these courses is decision making, because that's something students are going to be doing wherever they are in their life, that we want them to be able to understand how to incorporate mathematics when you're making some kind of decision. So it's not just, can you do this skill that I tell you this is what it is? It's, can you identify and pull from your memory bank and your tool belt of what the different things you know how to do and you've learned, and put them into action. Okay, so a couple of things that are coming, and I don't actually know if I can see this, if this was, hang on. Yes, I do want to get to this part, and then we'll turn it over to Angie, I believe. Anything that we're going to talk about that's already been created or will be created at the state level is not required. It is optional. So I do not want you to look at this and go, we have a curriculum that we love. We do not want to give it up. No one is asking you to, okay? It's just that there are schools that do not have the time sometimes, or the means to be able to develop their own rubrics and scope and sequence charts and all that, or they're not interested in doing that right now. They want something that's already done so they can just hit the ground running. So the main thing is you have local control. You can look at what we're coming up with at the state level, and you can take what you like, don't use what you don't like, tweak things. That's the idea of OER, Open Education Resources. You're not bound by what they are, but you're not required to use them either. That's a big thing. But this is, we're trying to reduce the issue that a district would say, well, we can't afford to do transitional math. This work removes that barrier. That's the idea. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Angie. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, I'm just getting going here. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yep, we can see it and we can hear you just fine. Thanks.
All right, thank you. My name is Anji Garza, and I'm the Director of Professional Learning at the Lee Ogle Whiteside Regional Office of Education in Sterling. And I have been a part of this transitional math project at the local level and now the state level for the past year. My involvement in the secondary to post-secondary collaboration in math began a few years ago. We worked pretty closely with Sauk Valley Community College in Dixon on several grant partnerships, including our Illinois Math and Science Partnership Program grant. And so through that grant work and through some other things we were doing with our office over the past several years, we had been convening secondary educators from Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties, in addition to Sauk Valley Community College math faculty, to have some really kind of hard and pointed conversations related to student success. What we were finding, and I'm sure many of you are finding in your communities, that the remediation rates at the post-secondary level were fairly high and fairly significant in our area, and we identified this as something that we would like to collectively impact and improve some student achievement and outcomes on. Through the Transitional Math Project, we decided that we wanted to further this work, and we spent the year developing a quantitative literacy course. We met 10 or 11 times during the school year for full days. We had some additional grant money that we used to help compensate subs, and we pulled people together. And then we spent 4 glorious full days with one another this summer to really put together some tangible pieces so that we could have some teachers pilot all of that work during this school year get the feedback and make some changes and adjustments. So I'm going to share a little bit of that in a moment, but before we see that, I wanted to kind of couch this conversation in a little bit of a different way. In transitional math, Kathy just talked with us about the law and the requirements and the math that we're preparing students for and the careers that we're ultimately preparing students for. When we started our curriculum work at Sauk Valley Community College, we immediately started with looking at the questions that we typically do in curriculum development work. We talked about what it is that we wanted students to know, and we also started talking about how is it that we're going to know whether or not students have learned it. Ultimately, in our conversations, we put a break on those questions. And instead of focusing on and going immediately to those key performance indicators, we took a big step back and we asked ourselves two simple yet very powerful questions. And those questions were, who are our students that are going to be enrolled in our transitional math course? And what is it that we're preparing them for? And that was a paradigm shift for us. We really spent some time having some quality conversations about that, and we kept coming back to it as we met over the course of the school year and in our 4 days together over the summer. To shed light on both of these questions, I'm going to take a moment, and I hope you will indulge me in a little bit of storytelling. I shared this story with our folks at Sauk Valley Community College and our high schools, and then I also shared it with our state level group this summer as we began our work together. So here's the story. Once upon a time, I'd like you to meet a little girl named Mackenzie. From the time she was in kindergarten, Mackenzie showed promise in math. She practiced her math facts and regurgitated them fluently. She was procedurally very strong. By 6th grade, Mackenzie had been identified for placement in the accelerated math program at her middle school. By 8th grade, Algebra 1, Mackenzie experienced a few hiccups in her math learning. Concepts became more challenging, quizzes became more difficult. However, Mackenzie sought additional help before and after school, and her parents worked to help her build skills and support her in her math learning. As Mackenzie transitioned into high school, she began to unravel in the area of math. Geometric reasoning and proofs caused her to become easily frustrated. She developed test anxiety. Her parents ultimately gratefully accepted an offer, tutoring on the weekends from a friend, and Mackenzie was allowed extended time in an alternative setting for her assessments. During her sophomore year in Algebra 2, Mackenzie continued to struggle. To compound matters, the teacher in the classroom was not very effective, and Mackenzie stopped asking for help. She was lost. She felt unsuccessful, and she felt no good at mathematics. Her mother removed Mackenzie from the accelerated program and enrolled her in an Algebra 2 course. Mackenzie's procedural aptitude could no longer hide the conceptual gaps in her math learning, and therefore she had difficulties with application and more challenging concepts. She completed her math education her junior year with Algebra 3 Trig. At her mother's insistence, Mackenzie made an appointment with her guidance counselor to discuss options for a senior level math course. Unfortunately, Mackenzie's ACT scores did not qualify her for credit-bearing math courses at the community college. And the other high school and developmental options did not meet with her high school schedule. Mackenzie, therefore, did not take a senior level math course. In the meantime, Mackenzie decided that she wanted to be a nurse practitioner. She wanted to help people. She enrolled at the local vocational center and earned her CNA license. She spoke excitedly about her internships and her future career. Upon graduation, Mackenzie enrolled in the local community college to complete her general education coursework with plans to transfer to a 4-year nursing program. But there was one hurdle, and that was math. Mackenzie failed to place into credit-bearing math coursework. She enrolled in 081 and failed. She enrolled in the computer-based program and failed. Mackenzie became visibly discouraged. She shared that she felt stupid. Why couldn't she pass a developmental math class? She announced that she no longer wanted to be a nurse. To her friends and family, she shared that there was just so much math and science in nursing that she couldn't, and if she couldn't pass a developmental math course, she had no business being a nurse. Mackenzie considered ultimately taking time off of school, With no idea of what she wanted to be, where she wanted to go, or what she wanted to do, she became even more lost. This beautiful young lady who wanted to make a difference didn't know what to do. I am very proud and happy to announce that Mackenzie enrolled in the developmental math course this summer at the community college and finally passed. She has decided that she wants to be a social worker because that was the only profession she could think of that did not require math or science. What a great way to pick a career. She applied and was accepted as a junior in the FACS program at ISU, where her counselor recommended a course for her major with math competencies embedded in that course to satisfy the math requirement. She is slowly regaining her confidence as a learner. And in case you haven't figured it out, Mackenzie is my daughter. There are thousands of Mackenzies in the state of Illinois. So what can we learn from her story? How does that shape our lens when we think about transitional math? So let's go back to our two questions. Who are our students in transitional math, and what are we preparing them for? Here's what we learned. We learned that transitional math needs to be relevant. As Kathy mentioned earlier, this includes connections to careers, authentic tasks, real-life relevant learning. Transitional math needs to prepare students for that next step, whatever that might be. Transitional math coursework needs to acknowledge that students enrolled in the course are not necessarily those who are the most excited about math. They may be frustrated, disengaged, disillusioned, and have a fixed mindset about math. Transitional math needs to promote success. In both of the groups that worked over the past year, both at the local level and at the state level, we discussed Mackenzie's stories, and we took these lessons as we prepared our curriculum and our curricular resources to address the needs of our students. It was at the forefront of our brains, and we kept coming back to it. So here's where our work led us. The work that we completed at our regional level was completed with Lee Ogle Whiteside Schools and Sauk Valley Community College. And so I have some of those schools that are listed here. Here are our work products that we worked to complete and ultimately grew those during our state level work this summer. So the very first thing that we did was we developed a competency-based rubric for each key performance indicator so that we could accurately measure where students are in relation to the target. So on this particular rubric, we have a 1 to 5 scale. Level 4 meets the expectation of the key performance indicator. Level 1 and Level 2 are addressing prerequisite skills. Level 3 is approaching that, and Level 5 exceeds. We started with this so we could have a better aligned assessment system, and we could really kind of focus and target how we plan to give feedback to students as well as differentiate instruction. The second thing that we did was we developed a course scope and sequence. Each unit of instruction has an outline that not only embraces those key performance indicators, but we took the time to indicate within each of those units which were major areas of focus and which we're supporting. You'll also notice on the course scope and sequence that each of the units of instruction are tied to some real-world skill, concept, career in particular. We tried to make those as career-focused as what we possibly could. We also developed a document called Competencies Across Units, so we could get an accurate measure about the number of times that students were engaged in those key performance indicators over the course of the school year. Then we went to craft our units of instruction, all centered around those real-life learning experiences as well as those career pathways. So in this particular unit for QL, this one is math and decision making. And so you'll notice that we included a unit focus, a compelling question for students to investigate. We also provided a recommendation for the number of weeks and minutes that this would take a normal classroom to move through. We highlighted the competencies assessed in the unit. Oops. And then we developed summative performance tasks and projects, as well as a recommended sequence of learning for each unit of instruction. Ultimately, each course that we move forward with developing includes a capstone. So our capstone for our QL unit was starting a business. So students had to engage in all of the considerations and mathematics related to starting a business, and then they had to pitch it to investors. So we also incorporated some of those soft skills and real life opportunities. Our group also developed a master course syllabus and an MOU so that our schools could move forward with piloting during this school year. We grew that work over the summer to the state level, which I was very excited to be a part of, and we convened secondary and post-secondary folks from across the state to help us with this work. So again, with Mackenzie's story in mind and with what we knew about good curriculum design, we developed course competency rubrics. These are some of the materials that Kathy will share with you later that are going to be released here in the future. So we have competency rubrics for both STEM and our tech math courses. We also developed units of study for both STEM and technical math. So this one is a sample of farm to table. So this is an agriculture-focused unit. We have our competencies across units so that you can get a look at how those appear over the course of the school year. And then we began work on developing our unit maps. So again, following the same format with the unit, the focus, compelling questions, competencies, summative assessments, and then we spent a lot of time on task identification. So what are some tasks not only that we could embed in those units, but what are some tasks that are out there that are well aligned to our competencies and our key performance indicators? Finally, we began discussion on capstones for each of those courses that involved some kind of presentation, math, soft skills that wrapped everything up for those students that they could really work on independently, working through and applying. So additional work that we see coming in phase 2, which Kathy is going to talk with you about, we're looking for additional task development in partnership with businesses and industry to support that idea of math in the career pathways. We're going to be looking at refining our capstones to address those competencies, but also college and career readiness indicators and soft skills. We're going to look at building kind of a new and different STEM pathway, which is pretty exciting. And we're going to be piloting all of this just as we are QL to get some feedback and revisions. So we're very excited to be able to share this work with you, and we hope that you might be interested in joining us in that next stage of the work, which Kathy will tell you more about. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome, Angie. You cannot start share screen while someone else is doing that. Okay, so.
I'm going to stop that right now as soon as I figure out how to do it.
Okay, so.
Oh, I see it up here. There we go. It's all you, Kathy.
So let me get this, and we have just a little bit. Now this is the nuts and bolts about how writing is going to work. So let me, so if you're interested in this, you're going to get a little bit more sense of what we're going to do and what we need people to do with it. Okay, so the QL, stats, and technical math have these framed out units. Angie has been amazing at leading work and really keeping a focus on what we're trying to do, which for anybody on this call who was a part of the subcommittees, we did have some people that are on the work group that were part of the subcommittees as well. One of the things that people kept saying last summer was, how is it really going to be different? Because when you look at the competencies on paper, they don't look different. Not really. They don't really look different than anything else we're already doing. So it's like, so how do we make sure these courses really are different? And what I'm excited about is they are. So they really are. They're not like, we're going to do a unit about fractions. We're not doing that. It's, we're going to do a unit about something that's realistic. Maybe it's decision making and like personal finance. And oh, by the way, some fractions might come along for the ride. It's a whole different perspective and paradigm shift, which is way more interesting to students. And some of them have had that kind of experience if they've had a Common Core experience that might be that way, but a lot of students haven't necessarily. It's, Common Core and the implementation really varies throughout the country, not just in Illinois. So we've got some framed units, and we do have some open tasks that they have found for QL and stats. They're really easy. There's all kinds of great stuff online that might work, but we don't have everything we need to round out the unit. STEM is a whole other ballgame. It is just a different beast. So the problem with STEM is that it was very, very difficult. And anybody that's familiar with the STEM competencies, you know why. It's if you look at the competencies, they are just, it's very skill-based. It's lots of factoring and rational expression simplification and solving rational equations. And it's really hard to make that stuff applied. And that's the issue. And so making these units, it just didn't completely come together this summer. The STEM group got scope and sequence done. They got rubrics done. All of that's going to be released in the very near future. But, hopefully, I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks. It's going to be before the end of September. All of this is going to be released on the new website that's coming, which you will hear about eventually. You'll get the new address for. But the STEM we just didn't get that far. And they worked hard. The STEM group definitely, they invested, but it's kind of one of those things, and I've learned this over the years with task development. If you keep hitting a wall with something, and they probably noticed it before I did, I was finally like, you know what, guys, I don't know if this is working. Should we just step back and maybe try to regroup? And I think everybody in the group just kind of had a collective sigh that I wasn't we got to get it done. And it was just, they all were like, yeah, it's not exactly working. And so we brought in more people that had been involved with STEM, the lead of the subcommittee, some different people had been on it. And we said, what do we need to do to make STEM work? And so what we did is we came up with two solutions: a short-term workaround for all the people that are in their intermediate algebra courses, and a long-term solution that's more in line with the QL stats and tech approach of integrated units focused on careers. Okay, so the short-term solution works like this. We will have a work group that is working this year that is going to basically, I keep calling it the STEM Band-Aid, because that's basically what it is. It's going to Band-Aid the problem. And that work group is almost entirely made of people that were already in this summer's work group. And then I think we have one more person. So that one is, that group is basically just coming up with a way to help people convert their intermediate algebra courses and meet the policies that the state requires, which is that you've got to integrate contextualized learning. So they're going to write some new projects that will frame a unit, but it's not going to be the full-on experience like the QL and stats or QL and tech yet. We'll get there. But the idea is, this is for anybody. It's we need to roll out a STEM course in fall 19. This is for you. Okay, that solution will exist. The long-term solution is for people to roll out an integrated STEM course in fall 20 if that's what they want to do. So the short-term is real linear. It's going to be based on function family. So, you're going to have a unit on polynomial functions and a unit on radical functions. The long-term solution is not built around the mathematical concepts as a unit, but instead careers as a unit. And looking at that exploration and the problems that come in different, it's just a different focus. It's very integrated. You're not going to just have a whole unit of linear functions. So more time needs to happen. So that's one of the things you need a work group for, is basically what Anji did this last year at Sauk Valley Community College with some of their area high schools. They had almost a school year to map out the QL units, which is why they're so good, because they've worked on them for so long. So Anji is going to lead basically this school year, and we're going to do the same thing with STEM. Now, we're not going to write yet for STEM. We'll write for STEM next year. So that fall 20, anybody that wants to have those units with that integrated approach will have them. So here's where we need. You're going to get the application link. Janine or Heather will give that to you. You do not have to be a math teacher to apply. So if you're sitting on this and you're because I had someone email me and they're like, I have an amazing project lead the way teacher that would be awesome for this. Can they be part of the writing group? Please have them apply. So you're going to get a recording. Anybody that registered for this, we had a lot of people register for this IL MathCom. They're going to get the recording of today's webinar, and they're also going to get the application link. So please forward that email when you get it to anybody that you feel would be good to work with. Because, and I say this as a longtime math teacher, one of our weaknesses is we don't always know how math functions outside of our classrooms. Some of us do, and I when you say us, some of you do. I'm as guilty as the next person of it. I'm married to an engineer, so I get some sense of that, but I'm as guilty as anybody in, looking at it from a math classroom lens, which is not the same lens that, say, like an accountant looks at math. And so having people that are not just in the math classroom, we need the math teachers, but having others too would make really great. So the more the merrier. And definitely higher ed and K-12. We need both educational levels. So forward it on. We have a really short time frame. So you got a week. It's not a long application. It's just, it's not hard to do at all. But you got till September 13th to complete it. Okay, so what are you going to be doing in the application? It's going to tell you all the details of, like how much will you get paid and what's the timeline and all that, which I'll frame in just a minute. But it's also, you get to tell us, what are you interested in doing and what's your background with curriculum work? Because one thing that we have seen in the work that's been done so far is all of us have different skill sets. Some people are really good at like mapping units. Some people are really good at developing content. Everybody has different abilities. We want to know, what's your strength? What are the things that you've done that you feel comfortable? Maybe you really like writing problem-based, tasks. Maybe you've taught CTE for years, and so you have lots of authentic situations. It's the only idea behind the application is, if we have more people than we need slots, we've got to have a way that is transparent and fair to allow anybody to apply. The stipend is $1,000 for the work, and it will go through June 1st. It will start real quick. It'll start at the end of this month, and it'll go through June 1st. And there is an event on October 4th in Normal, where there will be training for the writers. Writers will have a training webinar before that, but they'll have a training day in Bloomington Normal. And that's also a day we're going to be bringing in employers so that we can interview them and get more tasks. So here's our timeline. Later this month, we're going to do the training webinar, and I just learned from the people that are granting the dollars for this, which I'm so appreciative of, that the paperwork has to be filled out real quick. So that's another reason why we've got to do the application, so we know who you are, and then get you the paperwork so that we can get you paid. That's the main thing. October 4th is the training event, and that's when we'll be interviewing employers. It's an all-day thing, so you would need to get a sub. I think I will be able to have sub reimbursement, but I'm still waiting to hear back on that, but I have requested that as well. October through December, you'll be doing writing. Now, are you writing a full unit? No, you're not. A lot of the unit is ready, and a lot of the tasks already exist. You're filling in holes. So if you're worried, like, oh my gosh, what am I biting off? I don't want you to think that we're saying, here, just write a brand new unit. No, you have a ton of starting point to help you. That's not a good English sentence, but you have a great starting point to help you get going. We will have weekly Zoom webinar check-ins to help all of us make progress. And we had to go ahead and pick a date that works with one of our leaders of this is Janine. They're going to be Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5. We might get done before 5, but we want to schedule till 5 so we have it if we need it. January is when those of us that are working on the coordination of this, so Janine, Anji, and I will be arranging for pilots. And of course, anybody else that wants to help find pilots is more than welcome to help us do that. February through April is when there will be piloting, and what we're talking about is piloting the tasks that you write. We're not going to be able to pilot the entire unit. If we can, great. But we need at least pilot the things that you write so we have a sense of, do they work or not, and do we need to make some tweaks? And so you'll be getting, we'll be getting some pilots, and you'll get feedback, and you can make some tweaks to the tasks that you write. You'll also be, in that time, writing a few additional items like a pre-assessment for your unit, and making sure that the student success piece is incorporated. May is where we finalize things. Deadline's June 1. I want to be able to post all of this in June, so that schools, that teachers can go into the summer and have what they have, and all of it available to them, and have time to work with it. Now, I get that it'd be nice if they could have it earlier, but anybody that's interested in doing this, this is a pretty aggressive timeline. So we can't do it any earlier than this. I wish we could give people resources in January, but not vetted ones that are well done. It just takes some time to do all of this. So here's the teams application that we need people for. We're going to be looking for 5 people to do QL stats. That group is just like tech, so I'll just put it up once. We need 7 people for tech. What you're going to do is you are going to get the existing unit maps that have already been made from this summer, and also the work from Sauk Valley Community Colleges group. You're going to get them, and then we have a whole list, a checklist for you of what you're going to assess, what's there, what's missing, where there are holes. We're going to walk you through all of it, train you. We've got a template, everything. Janine is running these 2 groups, and it's going to be very organized to help you make it very manageable. The STEM team, that's going to be run by Anji, and that's 6 people. And what they're basically going to do is what the group did this summer, which is flesh out and try to build a unit map. You're not writing resources. You're just building out a unit map. So the resources for that will be written in another year. It was just too aggressive to do all of that in one time, because it takes time to really brainstorm this together and figure out how to make a coherent unit of instruction. So we want to give that the same time that the QL did. The tech, it's funny, especially Mike Caprula, I want you to know this, the tech was one of the easiest courses to put together. It's funny, there was places where we thought the tech was going to be the hardest. This was not it. This was one of the places where it was the easiest. And then we need one person who loves to edit and pick apart things and find inconsistencies. So if that's you, you don't have to create anything, you have to edit anything that's made so that we have consistency in language and formatting across all of the work that is created. All right. So where are we at with time? I know I'm a little bit over. I apologize, Janine and Heather, but hopefully now we can turn things to the groups.
Yeah, you did stop sharing. So what we're going to do right now is we just had a couple questions we wanted you to be able to talk to each other about, to look at what you're currently doing. The purpose of IL MathCom, again, is to kind of share resources from the people that are actually doing the work, the teachers that are on the ground. So kind of talk about what your current plan is, what conversations you've already engaged in, and what things you think would be helpful for you in the future. So we're going to do a breakout just for about 10 minutes, and we're going to come back after that. We broke you into, again, just approximately 4 regions. And in those 4 regions, what's going to happen is Janine's going to hit breakout, and then you're going to have to click OK. And then at the end of 10 minutes, Janine will say, come back to the room, and then you click OK to do that. Make sense? Is that good, Janine?
Yep. All right. I'm going to hit open rooms. So now you have to accept. Murfreesboro, you'll need to click accept too. We're going to the south room. I was originally going to stay in the main room.
I actually live in St. Joe, so.
Oh, wow. We're neighbors.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Amber.
You too.
Are you leading this group, or is it you're just the first photo that you're just the first camera that came up? Oh, there's Janine.
I'm just the first person.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, guys. So I have a few guiding questions for us to kick us off, but do you guys have any comments before we get started on our little 10-minute breakout?
I had a question on the last one. How again did we apply to be in like one of those 3 groups?
Great question. At the end of, at 4:30, when we sign off, you're going to get a link to a post survey that's just like our measurement of impact. Basically, it's just a 4-question survey regarding the IL MathCom. And then after you fill that out, there'll be the bit.ly link to the application. So it'll all be automatic. You'll get the post survey, and then boom, once you fill that out, you'll get the bit.ly link to the application.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem. I'm still missing Murfreesboro. They did not switch over. They're probably hanging out in the general room. Oh, they know where to go. It'll be fine. So any other questions before we move on to the guided questions? There's Murfreesboro, yay.
It feels new because I don't know if you guys
So far, we haven't used that.
I haven't.
All right. So what is your school's current plan for transitional math this year or next year?
For us, like, we really haven't done a whole lot. I've been trying to talk to Kathy and send her an email about stuff last week, and she did tell me today she's going to email me back tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a little bit with our main feeder school, and they had no clue if any of this was going on either, and none of the other local high schools have said anything as far as I'm aware, so I have no idea.
Where are you at?
Danville Area Community
Danville,
College.
okay.
We were one of the last ones to even say we were doing anything, and yeah.
Right.
I think
Who's
part
the
of our
onus
problem,
on to, oh, sorry.
Huh? I was gonna say, I think part of our problem is we're a small community college, so we don't have a math chair. The person who is supposedly in charge of all this is our dean, and she's in charge of way too much right now. And so, like, I'm trying to do stuff, but things are still getting sent to her. And I think her and I actually have a meeting next week, so I think we'll flush some of this out. But we just haven't had any interest, as far as I know, from our high schools. So we haven't really pushed anything either.
Yeah. And it is is it clear in the transitional math idea sort of who is the community college? I think the community college is setting the ground rules for all the different high schools, but does that mean that the community college is the instigator of the relationships with the schools, or does anybody say, oh, this is for me to do, or is it just kind of...
I think we're supposed to be the instigator. I think the fact that we don't necessarily have a head math person that's taking this over, and the person who's supposed to be taking it over just has so much other stuff going on, she just doesn't have time. I think that's part of the problem. And so, like I said, I don't really know a lot of the details. I seem to be the person who's been taking it on, but a lot of the stuff I also am not in charge of. And so I don't really know. Right now it just seems like a mess here.
Yeah, I think
this is Andy from Richland. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Andy.
Okay. We're kind of in the same boat as you when it comes to our school size. I'm the Dean of Math, Science, and Business here at Richland. Okay. We began the process about 4 years ago, just as one high school initiated the conversation, others joined in as a result. We have 9 high schools who now currently do it. For us, it became more organic because the schools wanted it, so we become the ones in charge of the program. We do something similar to our intermediate algebra class. And I think in my case, I'm kind of with you. We don't have math chairs. I'm the dean. I was a math teacher, so I became the leader by default of this program. It's my expertise. So we're in the same boat kind of in that we're trying to see if we can keep this course the way it is or if we need to tweak it some more. Kathy's coming to our campus next Thursday at 3:30 to talk more about that with our teachers. I hope we can learn a little bit more from that. I'd say, Amber, you're not far from Decatur, so if you want to come join us, you're welcome, if that would help.
I'm actually going to go to Heartland's on the 13th.
Oh, that's closer, so yeah, go ahead and do that one.
So I'm going to go to that one just to figure everything else out and go from there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Good conversations, guys. So what do these partnerships look like so far that you've created with what I hear you saying, Amber, is that it's really falling on the community college's shoulders, or your shoulders in particular, for starting the conversation with the high schools?
I think so. Like I said, I haven't initiated any conversations. We had one meeting with our biggest feeder school, and it's our largest by a lot. But it was actually initially a meeting about dual credit, and then I brought up transitional math. And so we've talked a little bit about it, but the high school had no idea what I was even talking about. about this like being like legally stuff that we have to do. And so it was kind of hard for me to put everything out there if they didn't have a clue what I was even talking about.
Right. So the other people on the call, are you seeing this as an issue too with your communication, like that the high schools aren't even aware that this is a requirement or an obligation?
Well, and is it a requirement on their end? My understanding was that the colleges have to offer it, but it's up to the high school whether they want to.
But they have to opt out of it. And
right.
I don't even know if they understand they have to opt out of it.
And if they're opting out, they have to show that that either A, it's not necessary for their school, like they have no percentage of students who are leaving their school needing developmental math at their freshman year in college, or that they already have, or that it's a significant financial burden. Like they have to show like proof that it's too much of a hardship for them.
Right. I don't think ours are aware of any of that at all.
Right. Okay. And unfortunately, I see that all the time. I'm in Southern Illinois. I live in St. Libory, so very small rural community. And we have this issue all the time of our Southern Illinois schools. Like they're not getting the information that they need to have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
What are the penalties for not?
Oh, I'm not sure that there are necessarily.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
As
so
far
it doesn't
as
come with a iron fist and the velvet glove or anything.
Right. We can ask that to Kathy when we come. I have to end the breakout and go back to the main room right now. But as far as I know, I haven't been told that there is an official punishment to be doled out. All right, I'm going to hit close the breakout room, so we're all going to show up back in the main room. Oh. Here they go.
They're going to get told something now.
Sorry if I interrupted anybody's conversations. Your crickets were the perfect sound, Janine. Oh, these darn crickets. I'm about to lose my mind.
Yeah. Are we still missing one of the groups?
Looks like maybe a few. They'll all be closed in 15 more seconds.
Okay. So then they don't have a choice.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We might have created more questions than answers in our breakout rooms.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Is that everybody?
That's everybody.
All right. Do you want to?
Just have to say,
go ahead.
One thing real quick to Janine and Heather. That was so awesome. So
thanks. Zoom is fun. I really love this platform. It's fantastic for facilitating conversations like this. This group got a little larger, so it was a little harder to manage, but it was still fun.
Yeah. Janine, do you want to report out on what your group question? You said you had more questions than answers.
Well, we had a lot of interest in writing. So questions about when we're going to get that link to the application, which I said, we're going to, as soon as this meeting concludes, we're going to send out our post survey, which helps us measure our impact. So very important for Heather and I. And then as soon as you answer that 4-question survey, that very brief survey, you will get the link to the writing application. So that's just a bit.ly link that will pop up right then. The other question that we had is who's responsible for overseeing or instigating the work? So in Southern Illinois, especially, it seems there's a lot of our small high schools are having trouble. Like there's not necessarily a person in overseeing and taking responsibility for this transitional math program. So is it the community college's responsibility to like instigate it and to start that conversation and get it rolling, or is it the high school's responsibility?
Okay, I have one question for that. What Southern Illinois, I can speak, community college is that high school a part of?
That's us, Danville Area Community College.
Thank you for volunteering that information. I was not going to throw you under the bus.
It's okay. I'll throw
Oh, well, that's not Southern Illinois, but still, okay. Because I was just going to say, because that's central, right?
Yeah, but I was put in the Southern group.
We had to keep moving the line further and further north because we didn't have enough Southern people. So sorry.
Can we just say rural?
There you go. It's anybody, whoever wants to start. And what I think is interesting is it's different everywhere. I've got places where I've had an ROE reach out to me. I've had EFEs say, we want to get started. Sometimes it's the high school district. Sometimes it's the community college. It just really varies. The summits have been a really good way to get started. And I've actually got to follow up with Amber about the summit that Danville is going to have in the very near future, I think. I'm trying to remember my dates. I've got a lot of them.
We don't have a date.
You don't have a date?
Nope.
We do.
No, we don't.
Oh, shoot.
You have us written down as a date, but it's not one that anybody here knew about.
Oh, goody. Okay, we'll figure that out. Because there's no point in me coming there if no one's there. We want to make it work for you guys and your schools and everything. So we'll figure something out. It's whoever wants to initiate it is fine. I will tell everybody we typically meet for summits at a community college because they often have a large facility. Although some of you work at really big high schools that have facilities that will allow for it too. So but I'm always trying to emphasize the idea that it's partnership, but anybody can start the process.
I will say one of the questions that our group had that kind of came up a couple times is staffing and trying to find the person when people have full schedules to find an extra person to do that. So I think that's something for as we move forward to kind of consider, or I don't know if Kathy, have you already
staffing for someone to teach a course there?
Right.
Everybody, okay. That is really common, and especially in small schools, that's a super common issue. So we have all kinds of solutions for small schools. The first one I offer is, let's look at existing courses and can we convert anything you already have? Because most schools have fourth-year courses, and if we can convert them to a transitional course, then your student gets placement that they can take with them. So that would be my first option. The other option is what I've seen with some really small schools is let's model what you do sometimes off foreign language. If you can't have enough students to do a Spanish 3 and a Spanish 4, they might be offered in the same room and the teacher is teaching basically 2 classes and they differentiate and do some different things with content. You can do that with transitional math. There's nothing that prevents that. So you might have a transitional STEM in the same room as an algebra 2. They're each getting different credit. The junior would get algebra 2. The senior would get transitional math. And they wouldn't necessarily have the same assignments. There would be some differences, but they can be in the same room and take advantage of the teacher's time that way. So there's workarounds, and if anybody has a specific situation, reach out to me and we'll try to brainstorm something that works.
All right, we're almost out of time, but Angie, do you have one question or one comment from your group that you want to share back?
We spent some time talking about where people were at with their conversations and potential barriers to moving forward with the work. We had some questions about when resources would be available for people to look at. So I said that would be, we would check in with Kathy and that would be forthcoming. And then we also talked a little bit about that competency. I did mention that competency rubric that I showed you earlier, if your district is exploring competency-based education or standards-based grading and reporting, that's part of what that tool is for. So we were kind of forward-thinking in terms of where high schools were at. And so we had a nice conversation about that in our group.
And Kathy and Angie, both of you, people are asking about your slides as well as any of these resources. So if there's anything that we can put on our IL MathCom page, let us know. We can either make it into a PDF and put it up there, or if there's anything, any of the links of things that are already up there, we can either put it in the forum or as part of the archives.
Okay, so I want to mention 2 things. One is I'll send slides to Heather and Janine so you guys can send those out or do whatever you want with them. And secondly, related to that, and also a question that came out of our group was for people that are doing this right now, they're we need more resources. I want you to know that there's already a lot of resources in the Illinois IOER. So if you Google IOER Illinois, and maybe we can give that link to people, there's already a Transitional Math Library that has a bunch of free resources in it. But I've also been collecting a giant list of free resources that's going to be on the new Transitional Math website that's going to roll out this month. So a lot of free stuff is coming your way to help you not have to navigate the interwebs to find something that might work.
Great. We'll make sure to put those links in the forum. And I just put, I believe that's the Illinois OER website I just posted there. So we'll put those in the forum as well, so you can find them later on when the chat window is closed, so that you can find them later. But I just want to thank everyone for coming and for staying an extra minute or two. Please take an opportunity to fill out the post survey. That is a good place to tell us if there's other conversations you'd like to have, whether it be about transitional math or anything else, and that we can set up a time to talk about it. Or if there are other questions you have, we can make sure to disperse them either to Kathy or anybody else on the writing team. So thanks, everyone. Janine, do you have anything else to say? Are we good?
I think we're good.
All right. So thanks. Go ahead. Leave meeting is at the bottom right. Thanks, everyone. Janine, you can stop recording.